All right, so I got a little bit of an update here for you guys on the Joe Biden administration insisting on continuing to exacerbate the single worst humanitarian crisis facing the planet right now, and that is the ongoing Saudi-led offensive in Yemen. So if you guys remember this gem from months ago towards the beginning of the Biden administration, he basically promised to end U.S. support of the Saudi-led offensive against the Yemenis people, and this turned out to be a complete fucking lie, and we kind of knew this at the time because of the language that they decided to use in this announcement. Okay, so as you notice here, Biden announces end to U.S. support of offensive operations in Yemen. So this is basically just State Department speak for we are now going to start calling everything defensive, right? So when they come out and they make a specific qualifier here and they say we're not going to be providing offensive support, it doesn't actually mean they're not going to be providing offensive support. It just means they're going to start calling everything defensive and still continue the flood of military and logistical support for Saudi Arabia to continue this inherently offensive campaign in Yemen. So again, basically just completely lied to the American people, implying that he was going to fix the humanitarian crisis, and in fact, he is doing the exact opposite of that. Now, he has been trying to shove through this $650 million weapons sale to Saudi Arabia, and he basically was called out by a bipartisan coalition of members of Congress. So I got a little clip here that is a rare sight to see, but we got Rand Paul actually teaming up with Chairman Bernie Sanders to oppose this weapons sale, and you're going to see here in a minute that unfortunately this effort seems like it has failed, but still, you know, it's good to see a little bit of bipartisanship, I guess. In this context, it makes sense. Normally, bipartisanship, not something I'm too big of a fan of because, you know, in our corrupted government, that usually just means you're going to get a bipartisan coalition of corrupt Democrats and a bipartisan coalition of corrupt Republicans to work together to produce corrupt legislation. But this is one of the rare instances where bipartisanship is actually a good thing. So let's go ahead and watch this short little clip here.
And we are complicit. We are arming the Saudis and allowing this to happen. Offensive, defensive, they shouldn't get any of our weapons. We should stop selling them any weapons until they stop starving the country of Yemen.
President, I find myself in the somewhat uncomfortable and unusual position of agreeing with Senator Paul.
Right, so you see there, just a short little clip. Obviously, they gave way longer speeches, but you guys get the point, okay? We got even like Rand Paul, who is usually nominally anti-war in context like this, teaming up with the left wing of the Democratic Party, the anti-war faction of the Democratic Party, to oppose this legislation. Now, as I said, unfortunately, this ended up failing, as you see here, as pointed out by Ken Klippenstein, democracy, baby, because the Senate resoundingly defeats the effort to block Saudi arms sale, 30-67 in the vote, split the Democratic caucus, but the vast majority of Republicans backed the Biden administration's proposed sale. And of course, this comes directly opposed to what the American people actually want or wanted. You see here, this is a brand new poll that had just come out. A strong majority of voters opposed the U.S. arms sale of $650 million in air-to-air missiles to Saudi Arabia. And you see here, it is not even fucking close, okay? We have overall, among all likely voters, strongly support is literally, you can't even see the percentage there because it's so low. Somewhat support, 19%, but overall, we have a net negative 39. So again, one of these issues where all of these same people who pretend to care about like a bipartisan coalition within Congress, turns out the only times that they actually care about bipartisan coalitions is when they come together to do absolutely corrupt and horrific things. In this case, supplying a country in Saudi Arabia that is not only an authoritarian theocratic monarchy that is, you know, absolutely violent towards its own citizens and citizens abroad, but not only that, but they are also exacerbating and basically helping to cause the single worst humanitarian crisis on the planet, not just with their bombing campaigns that we are giving them military support to continue, but also in their ongoing embargo, not allowing much needed resources to get into the country of Yemen. So again, we have this bipartisan coalition coming together to do absolutely horrific shit. Not surprising if you understand the nature of the U.S. government, which is the same government that just so happened to pass a $778 billion defense bill, okay? $778 billion. You'll notice, if you have been keeping up with this, that this is actually much larger, not only than we have historically had in terms of our military budget, but also it's even larger than what the Pentagon was asking for. Okay, they gave them tens of billions of dollars in this defense bill, extra on top of what the Pentagon, who by the way, can't even pass an audit to tell us what they're fucking spending this money on, they gave them extra money, more money, and not only just more money, but they gave them like over $25 billion extra extra on top of what they were asking, which would have fully covered some of the programs that they just took out of the Build Back Better Act and told us that we can't afford, okay? It would have cost multiple times more than just, for example, the free community college that Biden was promising the American people. So just for what we added to the Pentagon budget, just for the extra amount that they are giving in free cash to the Pentagon to go, fuck around and bomb innocent civilians with, just with that money, we could have afforded free community college for the American people. So again, just to give you a perspective in terms of the priorities of the US government, it's not a secret. This is the military-industrial complex, and this is, again, also just as a reminder, coming at the time where we just ended the longest war in American history. We just ended the Afghanistan war, or, ended. We pulled our boots on the ground troops out of Afghanistan. We are likely going to be continuing bombing campaigns and airstrikes in Afghanistan alongside the Taliban, but we just supposedly left our longest war, and somehow we need an increase to the military budget. Please tell me how that makes any sense at any level. It obviously doesn't, unless your priorities are simply handing infinite sums of cash to defense contractors. And so this just feeds into the military-industrial complex machine that we have running in this country. And just to give you a reminder that is very specific to this $650 million Saudi weapons sale that has been going through, as a reminder, Biden's pick to lead the Pentagon, Lloyd Austin, Biden defense pick to get up to $1.7 million from Raytheon role. So the guy who Biden picked to lead his Pentagon literally was just sitting on the board of Raytheon. And now, to make it even wilder, just to show you the revolving door of how the military-industrial complex works, this guy was a former general before that. So he goes from being a top U.S. general to working for a defense contractor company, sitting on the board, making decisions for a company that profits from war after just leading our War Department, and now comes in and is replaced at the top of the Pentagon. Okay, so again, this is the revolving door of the military-industrial complex. This one guy went from being a top military commander, goes and works for a for-profit defense contractor, then comes back to make more decisions for the military, namely giving more money to guess who? Raytheon. Okay, so you see here, this is from November 4th. Saudi gets first major arms deal under the Biden administration with air-to-air missiles, and they say the U.S. State Department approved its first major arms sale to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under U.S. President Joe Biden with a sale of 280 air-to-air missiles valued at up to $650 million, the Pentagon said on Thursday. And guess who makes these fucking missiles? Raytheon Technologies makes the missiles. So again, okay, this is just a fucking joke at this point, right? They don't even try to hide the corruption. It is out there. It is not difficult to find. You don't need to be going and digging deep to any extent. Okay, this is how this works. All right, it doesn't matter if the American people overwhelmingly oppose decisions like this. It doesn't matter if you are exacerbating, and not even just exacerbating, enabling and giving your approval for the exacerbation of the worst humanitarian crisis that exists on the planet with the Saudi-led offensive in Yemen. It doesn't matter the humanitarian consequences. It doesn't matter if the American people overwhelmingly oppose it. It doesn't matter if it doesn't even make economic sense. All that matters is that a couple of defense contractors, in this case it looks like Raytheon, all that matters is that a couple of these defense contractors who have buddies within the government, like Lloyd Austin, who just sat on the board of Raytheon, all that matters is that a couple of these guys get to walk out the back door with fat wads of cash in their pockets. And again, this money is blood money, okay? It is money that is going into the pockets of defense contractors who are profiting off of war, and in this case, making hundreds of millions of dollars from killing innocent men, women, and children in Yemen, in this conflict that is ongoing. So it's just, again, absolutely ridiculous, but the corruption, again, is out there in the open. This is the military-industrial complex churning forward at full speed under the Joe Biden administration.